So do you remember your first audition day?
Honestly, mostly what I remember was a regional audition, and my main takeaway is that I was just like wholly unprepared. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't even, I don't know. I went to the audition and there was more rep than I had practiced. And
Right.
they called one that I didn't know. It's the sort of thing that now looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? Of course, you prepare all the rep when you go for an audition. But as a senior year trumpet player, so that was maybe a good indication that I wasn't going to be prepared for my audition. But
Yeah.
do you remember yours?
Yeah, I was actually here.
Oh yeah.
I was so nervous. We got a huge snowstorm that day, and we ended up having it was like a foot of snow over Denver. And that's like the story of auditions. I feel like everything just feels a little bit different than what you had planned for. But I got into the room, and it was with our previous professor of percussion, John Kinsey, and he just made me feel right at home.
Yeah.
And how can you not feel welcome in that environment, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember thinking that phrases were going to be easy, and they just they weren't. They really weren't. Oh my gosh.
Well, Stephen, we've got some coffee,
do.
We're here in your office, and we're gonna have a little conversation about how to apply to Lamont.
That's right. That's
Awesome.
right.
Awesome.
I mean, to get us started, since you really are the front line of the admission office, you're going to be the one and are the one that the students speak to first. So I'm wondering, tell us a little bit about what we offer here degree-wise for undergraduates in particular.
Yeah.
How might someone make a decision on what to apply for, what to major in, and what do they have to do?
So the first consideration is probably between Bachelor of Arts in Music and a Bachelor of Music, and those two degrees are going to be different in terms of the music-specific requirements that you'll have during your time at DU and Lamont. In terms of Bachelor of Arts in Music, this is usually the degree that's most often chosen by people who want to do a double major. As far as the Bachelor of Music in Performance, we have composition, there's recording and production, and Bachelor of Music in Jazz Studies and Commercial Music. So all of those degrees are really concentrated within Lamont. It's a lot of music-specific requirements, and they're really geared for students who are looking to build a career as a musician in some capacity.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I know that when we talk with students, a lot of times it's helpful to point out that the Bachelor of Music is 132 credits in the major. So it's almost 2/3 of the overall degree is in music. And then we flip it for the Bachelor of Arts, which it's only going to be 70 credits in the major and a lot more time outside of it. So to your point, they can really bring in a ton of outside curricula and kind of spread out and expand their horizons. That's great. So I can kind of understand how someone might choose each. It's also worth noting here that students change degrees and change majors within DU on a relatively frequent basis. It happens every year, right? So I know that some students can feel a little bit pressured to pick the thing, I gotta know exactly what I want to do right now. But again, one of the benefits of being at a school that's not just a music school, but a full university is that there's flexibility when they're here, which is really great.
And that's often a conversation I'm having with applicants throughout the process.
Before we get into the ins and outs of how to apply, when can students apply? We hear all these phrases thrown around: early decision, early action, regular decision, rolling admission. How do we navigate that? What would you tell students is the difference between those different options, and how might they decide which is the best choice for them?
So really the major difference in the timelines is early versus regular, right? So we have two early timelines, and I'll explain the difference between those two. We have a regular decision 1-2. So if you are an applicant who's excited to find out your answer in terms of admission for Lamont and to hear whether you've been admitted to DU, then the early timelines would be great for you. There's two early timelines to choose from. You have early decision and you have early action. So the difference between those two is early decision is going to be a binding contract. So if you apply via early decision and you get your admission from DU and Lamont and DU admit you, then you have to commit to Lamont and DU before the holidays. And then you have to also withdraw your applications to other universities or music schools you might be applying to.
Okay, so it sounds like that one is really only a good option for someone who knows they want to come to Lamont and to DU if they get in, and if the finances work out, that is where they want to be.
Yeah.
And so really, unless you're sure about that, you
Right.
probably shouldn't choose early decision.
Right, and it's also our least common application timeline as well because of that. So that's a less popular option unless you know right away.
Okay.
Right?
So how does that differ from early action?
Yeah, early action is non-binding. So you still complete everything before the holidays, but you don't have to decide whether you're coming to Lamont and DU until when everyone else decides for regular decision. So you know your answer before the holidays. You can spend all of winter break thinking about whether you want to come and accept your offer. And then really that timeline is great for an applicant who is really driven to come to Lamont or DU, maybe doesn't know if it's the perfect place for them, and maybe also doesn't know if the finances are going to work. So that's a really great timeline for someone who wants extra time.
Okay, so extra time always sounds like a good thing. Why doesn't everybody choose early action then? Why does anybody do regular decision?
Yeah, well, there's extra time in terms of the audition process, right? So we mentioned that all early applicants, early action and early decision, have to apply in the fall, and that includes their audition. So they need to audition in front of our faculty or by submitting a video before the holidays. That is different from the regular decision timeline. So if you're someone like myself when I was in high school who needed a little extra time preparing my audition, then the regular decision timeline is really a great option for you because you won't have to audition until the end of January or early February.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you cannot do early decision or early action, apply to the University of Denver in one of those rounds, find out if you're admitted, and then audition for Lamont in February.
Right.
All has to happen right there in the fall.
Yep.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty then. So I mentioned you're the frontline person. You're going to be walking them through the application and audition process. What sorts of things do they need to do to apply and audition for Lamont? What types of materials do they need? What's the timeline? I know we'll direct everybody to the website too to get specific dates, but give us an overview of what people can expect.
Yeah, so everyone starts with the Common App. So if you're an undergraduate applicant, you're going to start with the Common Application. You'll fill out your profile in the Common Application, and then once you finish that, you can select the University of Denver as your desired school, one of your desired schools, and they'll send your application to DU. So then DU receives that application, and we build you a profile within our own application system. That's where you'll keep track of all of your checklist items for your application, letters of recommendation, your music application, that's where that shows up. We'll talk about that in a bit. This is also where you keep track of whether you've scheduled your audition. If you have portfolio components, that'll be there. So that portal you'll have access to throughout the application process. We'll send you a notification, and you'll know that then you can go into the Lamont application and start filling out music-specific application stuff. We'll want to know what instrument you play if you're an instrumentalist. You can choose your voice type there. And if you require an audition, this is where you choose which audition type you have.
Okay.
So if you're coming in person, you can select in-person audition. For regular decision applicants, we have 2 audition days. We're going to link those in the comments below this video. And for the early action and early decision applicants, we have 1 fall audition day.
So what if someone cannot make an in-person audition day for scheduling reasons or for financial reasons? What options do they have outside of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we offer an option to do a video audition. So you can record all of your audition requirements, and like you mentioned before, all of those requirements are necessary.
Don't make a mistake.
Remove stuff, right? Yep.
Practice all.
Upload all of that to a video, and that can be uploaded directly to the portfolio section of your application. You can access that portfolio section even after you submit your application, so there's no problem there. We always suggest submit that application, fill out the music application before you're ready with your video, because you can always come back and submit that later.
Okay.
One thing that students often think is that we weigh an in-person audition more than a video audition.
Right.
We do not prioritize in-person audition over a video audition here at Lamont. We give everyone an equal opportunity. If you can't make it to Denver but you still want to apply to Lamont, by all means submit a video. We're still going to give you equal consideration for admission and also for scholarship.
Right, absolutely. How about if you really want to audition in person, but one of those 2 February dates or late January, early February dates don't work for you? Are there other options to audition in person for us?
So if you have audition days or you're busy on those days, this is also a time for all-state orchestra and band, all-state choir, right? Totally get it. We'll give you an option to select alternate date on the Lamont application. And after that, I'll work with you directly to schedule an audition day that would work for you outside of our regular days.
Great. I think it's important to note that when we're talking about that, we're of course talking about regular decision. If you do early action or early decision, we have 1 audition day in the fall. If you can't make that audition day and you don't want to submit a recording, we will ask you to switch to regular decision, and we can be a little more flexible with those dates for sure.
So there are of course other degrees that don't require an audition. For example, a composition applicant. If you're a Bachelor of Music in Composition applicant, you won't be required to audition in person. And this of course is only for classical composers. If you are a jazz and commercial music composer, part of your degree here is going to be playing and taking lessons, so we want to hear your audition too. So you'll submit a composition portfolio and audition
on a primary instrument.
And the details about that composition portfolio for both classical and for jazz and commercial music is going to be linked below this video. The other degree that often gets a little confusing is recording and production.
Right.
So this is the most lengthy application at Lamont in terms of music-specific materials, because they have to audition and submit an entire portfolio for recording and production. So we're going to have a separate video all about that process. We'll link that video below. Our R&P folks will have all of their resources there.
That's a great idea. And I mean, it sounds like the main takeaway though is that recording production applicants will need to audition on a primary instrument outside of recording production to be admissible to those studios, either on an instrument, voice type, or composition portfolios, that there's that added component. Okay, that's really important. Okay, so let's see, we've done the Common App, we've done the Lamont School of Music application after the Common App has come through the application portal, the DU student application portal. They've been in contact one way or the other to get set up with an audition, whether or not that's recorded or in person on audition day or ad hoc. They've decided which round they're going to pursue.
Now the big remaining thing is your audition. And our audition days are super fun, right? We try to make it a really fun event that feels inviting. We offer lots of programming, so there's a session on financial aid and scholarship. We have a welcome concert by one of our current students. So if you're coming in person, we have lots of stuff for you there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about our first audition experiences. Auditions are nerve-wracking. There's really no way around it. And so I know that you and I really try, and our students do as well, strive to relieve as much stress as we can to let our applicants focus on doing the very best they can at those auditions. It's also an opportunity to meet faculty. I mean, you mentioned you came to DU, you met Professor Kinsey, and he helped kind of let that stress melt away because he's just such an inviting person, such a kind person. And I think that's, we mentioned recording, we don't value recorded auditions any lower than in-person auditions, but one of the reasons we push those in-person auditions or encourage in-person auditions if possible is so they can have that experience with the faculty. And we should note that those who submit recorded auditions, especially for scheduling reasons, often will come out and visit, and we really encourage that, right? Come out, have a prospective student lesson perhaps, meet the faculty so that you can really get an idea of whether or not this is going to be a good fit for you, right?
Yeah, that's a good
whether
point.
or not you connect well with that faculty member.
And throughout the year, I'm working with applicants or potential students who want to come tour Lamont, and I can set you up with any kind of experience you'd like.
I know that we're doing this to help people understand the application process to Lamont specifically, but that's one of the things I know you and I both tell anybody we talk to, they should ask about that at every school.
That's right.
You're going to be with that faculty member for up to 4 years of one-on-one lessons. They're going to hold your development in their hands, right? Knowing as much as you can about that faculty member and how you work together the more you know, the better decision you're going to make about which school to
Yeah.
apply. So that's not just here at Lamont. That's if you're doing a music major, please reach out. People like us at every school are going to help you facilitate that, because we know how important it is.
And that's actually a really great segue into the next step of the whole process, right? So you've applied, you've finished your audition, everything on my end that I'm helping with is pretty much done. So
That's
Stephen,
right.
This is where I hand things over to you and you
Right.
start working more closely
Right.
with applicants. So can you tell us what happens after students audition?
I think it's important to consider what's happening behind the scenes, right? The applicant has experienced the application process and the audition. That is what they have provided to us. Now we are trying to make a decision with that information. So, and this kind of goes throughout the year, right? So even early decision, early action is a similar process for this whole thing. One is all of the academic considerations, GPA, counselor recommendations, test scores if you choose to submit them. That's all really considered by the Office of Undergrad Admission. They're doing that kind of traditional, holistic admission review, and they're going to consider whether or not each student can be successful at DU as a student from an academic standpoint. So they're kind of doing that. We have now heard your audition. We've looked at your music-specific information. So we have that. Now I sit down with every department chair across Lamont. So in the string department, I'm meeting just with Professor Wang, the overall department chair for that area. We're talking about the audition results, the needs of the department, right? Because one of the things that we really strive for is to balance the department well. It's really for both us, for our ensembles and whatnot, but for the student experience. If you come in and you're the only cellist and we have 100 violinists, we may be fully enrolled, but that doesn't provide a good experience for the violinists or the cellists, to say nothing of the rest of the orchestra. So that is one of our considerations. We make our admission decisions based on both what we hear from the student, but also what Lamont needs to be right-sized. We don't want 100 tuba players, right?
So I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Do applicants receive then an admission letter from DU and an admission letter from Lamont?
Yeah, so when the decision comes out, they're going to get an alert that an admission decision has been made. They'll go to their application portal, same place they filled out the Lamont app, and they'll see a decision from both of us at the same time. It'll say, you've been admitted to the University of Denver and the Lamont School of Music. Congratulations,
great,
right? So
great.
even though we're kind of doing stuff in silos in the back end, or we're talking about academics and music, we do come together, make our decisions together, and then reflect and communicate those decisions to students together, right? So you're not getting separate things. I will note that you can be admitted to DU and not Lamont. So on the Lamont application that you mentioned, there is a question about, if you don't get admitted to music, would you like to be considered at DU for something else? So you can put like English or whatever it is that your other interest is. If we have that information and you don't pass your audition to Lamont and you are admissible to DU, you'll be automatically admitted as an English major instead of a music major. And we'll alert you to that change and all of that. But you don't have to reapply. You still have that. You can be considered for that other area.
And of course, there are opportunities for that student to come participate at Lamont while they're at DU, right?
Ensembles, lessons, coursework, all of these things. You can even audition for a minor later on. However, so while you can be admitted to DU and not Lamont, the reverse is not true. If you are not admitted to DU on an academic basis, even if we really like you from a music standpoint, we cannot admit you to Lamont if you're not admissible to DU.
Got it.
So that's something to consider. So yeah, I will meet and talk with the faculty. We'll make those admission decisions. We'll work with Office of Undergrad Admission to make sure that all the people we think are admissible are also admissible to DU, and then we'll release those decisions. What is also happening at that time is scholarship consideration. So the most important thing to know about how Lamont does scholarship is that music majors, anyone who has applied as a music major, is considered for the Lamont Scholarship, which is a combination of musical merit, how well they do on their audition, right? Mm-hmm. Academic merit, where do they rank among the rest of the admitted class for DU? And if the student submits the FAFSA and the CSS profile, both of which they will get emails about throughout the process. Then we also consider financial need. So music merit, academic merit, financial need. All of those things are considered in the Lamont School of Music scholarship.
Got it. And it's one number.
It's one number, so
Okay.
it's all. You're not going to see line items for each of those things. It's going to be one number. And then the important thing is, because we consider all of that when we're making the Lamont Scholarship Award, music majors are not eligible for academic merit or DU need-based aid on top of their music scholarship. We've already taken that into account. It's represented in the Lamont Scholarship. So if you go online and you say, oh, I'm going to be a provost scholar because of my grades or what have you, you will never see a provost scholarship on your account because we will have already kind of considered that, and it will be just included in that Lamont School of Music scholarship. So that's really important. Applicants will apply at a bunch of different schools, and different schools do it different ways. But what is super common is somebody to say, you have this music scholarship, this academic scholarship, and this need-based scholarship. For us, that's all going to be one big scholarship.
Great.
Yep. And it's a similar deliberation. We're looking at all those considerations. We're talking with faculty. We're considering what our needs are. If someone has been admitted, we really strive to make it affordable for them. I mean, we want anyone who's been admitted, we want here, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
so we will strive to make it affordable. Which I would say leads me to the last point on this, about scholarship appeals, right? So we do have a process by which, after a student and a family has received all their financial information, their scholarship information, they're getting an idea of how much DU is going to cost relative to other schools. We have a process where we can talk through those details, right? And what is common, and I think is the archetype for that appeals process, is someone who has gone through the process at multiple schools and ultimately decided that DU was the place they wanted to be, right? This is the place that really spoke to them during the audition. They felt at home here. They liked the faculty, and they're looking at their offers and saying, "Ooh, DU's my top, but I don't know if we can afford it. It's a private school. It's expensive, and we can talk ad nauseum about what we think is provided by that cost, the private school cost. But the reality is, they're looking at those offers and thinking, "Ooh, if only it was just a little bit closer to this other offer, or if only it was just a little bit more affordable, I could be more comfortable committing to DU." Those are the types of conversations that we want to have.
Yeah. Who would I submit that appeal to?
So that'll come to me, right? We will
Okay.
start that conversation, and usually it's via email or over the phone. It's a very individualized process, right? Because everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different. But I want to return to the idea, the philosophy that if we've admitted a student, we really do want them to be able to come, right? And so and if we know they want to come, then we're both starting from we have a shared desired outcome.
Yeah.
We of course both have constraints, right? DU doesn't have endless finances. The individual families don't have endless finances. So there are constraints, but the goal is to work together and try and achieve that shared goal of attendance, overcoming some of those obstacles. It doesn't work every time, of course, but that conversation is important, and we want to have it because, again, we want those students to be able to come here.
And now they have their admission decision and their scholarship, and this is the exciting part, right? What are the considerations in that process?
Man, yeah, that is really important. I think the conversation you have with students and families early on in the process as they're kind of trying to figure out what their list is, what am I going to apply to, what do I care, kind of broad strokes about. And then that starts to really fine tune. Now, by the time they get to admission and they start working with me a little bit more, admission decisions, and they're working with me a little bit more, that list has been culled somewhat because they maybe didn't get into every school that they applied to, or they did get in, but they really had, some schools just didn't work out for them. They just can't see themselves there. They didn't have as good of experience. So at this point, now we're getting down to a shorter list of schools. We talked about finances a little bit. Obviously, that's a huge component. It's silly to pretend that it isn't, right? School is expensive. It's a big investment. And so that's going to have to be a major criteria for them to make their decision. Beyond finances, we talked about that connection with the faculty. That's still, in my opinion, the number one thing. Again, you're going to be working with that person for probably 4 years.
Yeah.
you just want to know as much as you can about that, right?
Yeah.
Does it work?
And how do you get to know the faculty?
Right. So you can reach out to us at any point, and we can connect you with faculty members. Also, throughout the admission cycle, we're going to be trying to connect you with those faculty members from the very beginning. So hopefully, actually, by the time you've come to the decision point, you hopefully will have already had a conversation with the faculty or exchanged some emails. So it's not a totally totally closed communication line.
Right.
Hopefully that's there, right? And we encourage our faculty to reach out to admitted students to make that even easier, right? A student may be concerned about, oh, this is a big scary faculty member. I'm not sure I want to reach out to them just out of the blue, or even just respond to that email. And that, I mean, we get it. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And so we really encourage those big scary faculty members to not be so big and scary and to reach out directly to the student and just
and
really
chances
facilitate.
are you'll meet this faculty member and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't
they
believe I
aren't
was
big and
worried
scary.
about this.
That's right. So the teachers are the biggest one, I think, in our opinion. We also encourage students to connect with current students. So these are applicants who are saying, what is it like to be a percussion student with Professor Van Wert? What is that studio like? Who am I going to be working with? You know, you probably know, if you've made it this far, that Lamont's capped at 300, so it's about 100 grads, 200 undergrads. It of course varies from year to year, but the bottom line is we try and keep our studios at the size that is needed to have the ensembles and have the experience we want for our students.
Right.
But we're trying to keep them small, right? So that you really do have that relationship with the faculty member. You know your studio. You're getting a lot of experience.
And you get lots of experience performing. Right.
So the takeaway there is that you're definitely gonna know everyone in your studio. And so being able to kind of get a sense for what the culture of that studio is beforehand, that can only help, right?
Right.
And you can achieve that a number of ways. One, of course, is again, just reach out to us and we can connect you, as we will do with faculty. But if you're able to come out and visit on a school day, right? Sit in on performance class, go to an ensemble rehearsal. These are all things we can help you set up. But we know that visiting is not possible for everybody, so we try and make videos that help give that information.
We have a virtual tour that's linked below.
That's right.
Yeah.
Many of our performances are on YouTube, so you can watch those. And our faculty connect via Zoom and everything else. So that's another really big consideration. And then finally, and there are myriad considerations, right? Every student is going to have a slightly different concoction of, what they're looking for in a school. But I mean, the last one is just other programs, right? So we know what we're going to do in music. You've already met the faculty, maybe you've reached out to students, you have a really good sense of those things.
Right.
What's campus like more broadly? What's the life like more broadly? What are the student clubs that are available? What are the dorms? What's the dorm situation?
What's it like to live in Denver?
Yeah, what's it like to live in Denver? How far are you away from downtown? Where do you go grocery shop? I mean, these are really getting into nitty gritty, but it's a big decision, right? And again, hopefully you're down to a number of schools, a handful of schools, and you're able to kind of dig deeper on each of those.
Yeah. And our admissions team, us two, are always here to answer those questions.
That's right.
And our faculty, we can conduct you with current students. We've got a whole team ready to help you make that decision.
That's right. And ultimately, we also just want to. I know that you and I both view this much more as a matchmaking process. It is not a sales process. It is not like hey, here are all the things of why you should like Lamont. That's not really what we're doing here. We want to help you ask good questions and have the experiences you need to have here at Lamont, but also elsewhere, so that you can make a really good decision. Yeah. And if that has all happened, and you decide that Lamont isn't the place that you want to be, or that ultimately it's just, not where you end up, we are thrilled for you. Yeah. Go out and have we care about the industry of music, the training of young musicians, right? We want to further this art more so than we care about making sure everybody comes to Lamont, right? So, absolutely. So I think that hopefully you'll feel that. Hopefully they will feel that as they come through the audition and admission process, that we of course want to talk about Lamont, but this is really about helping them decide what's best for them to further their goals within music, right? So hopefully that'll be the tenor of the conversation. All right. As we go through.
So we've considered all those factors. Maybe we've decided whether we want to come to Lamont or whether we don't want to come to Lamont.
Mhm.
That's okay, right? So when is that deadline?
Yeah.
When do we need to tell them?
That's great. So early decision, early action. Well, early decision, like you mentioned, that's binding. So it's less of a response, like you have to tell us you're coming, or like choose, as it is a just confirm, right?
Mhm.
You've been admitted early decision. We are expecting you to come, right? Because it's a binding decision. So just confirm that, hey, we're coming. So that's pretty easy. It happens really pretty quickly after you get your decision.
Before the holidays, right?
Yeah, before the holidays. Early action, you'll find out from us before the holidays, but you actually don't have to make your decision until May, typically. May
yeah.
1, typically.
Okay.
And that is the same response deadline for a regular decision.
Okay.
So I promise it will not sneak up on you. Lamont, as well as all of our friends at institutions elsewhere, are constantly reminding you at that point, hey, take your time, figure out what the right place is, but please, please, please let us know when you know, and no later than that response deadline, which is typically early May. If you do know, the earlier you let us know, the better. So it's actually fairly straightforward. You think about it, we hear all these auditions, we have the people we've admitted. Often we do have wait lists, right? Where we're saying, oh man, we really like these people, but we only have a certain number of spots, so we're gonna wait list. Somebody in that admitted class telling us, thanks but no thanks, directly impacts another student in that pool, right? That we can now go to that student and say, hey, we have a spot. Right?
Yeah,
so it isn't just because we're like anxious and want to know about what everybody is going to do. It really does impact other students in the pipeline.
Part of this larger performing arts community.
Yeah. And again, hopefully we've had a chance to kind of build a relationship with these students over the process, and it's just fairly easy for them to just respond to our last email saying, hey, I've decided to go to whatever other school is a better fit for me.
And we'll be so excited for you.
We will wish you luck and say, hey, think about us for grad school later on.
Right.
All right, so we've gone through all of the application stuff. We've tried to present all of this information, try to give a roadmap for all our applicants. It's a lot. What if you could just say like one thing that you want our applicants to know as they go into this season? What's that thing?
You do not need to have everything compiled for your application in order to submit it. You can actually go back in on the graduate and undergraduate side and re-upload things. If you decide you want to tweak your video, you can do that at any point until that deadline, right? So I would say if you know you want to apply to Lamont, submit that application and get that rolling, because as soon as you submit, we can have until the deadline to upload your video, your portfolio, those letters of recommendation if you have those. But that gets you into our system, and we'll start sending you some reminders and information.
I think we've said it a little bit before, but a major takeaway, and kind of are highlighting it right now, there are no bad questions. Reach out to us. Like, you're there. You're ready to say, hey, submit the application. I can help you figure out what's next. We can connect you with people. We're here to help. Our colleagues at other schools are here to help, right? This is an industry that is meant to be connecting students with the right institution, and we hope that is us for you, and it may not be, but that's fine too. And then, so ask questions, reach out, use us as a resource. And finally, we're here because we love music. We love music education. We love talking to 17 through 26-year-old generally of students who are want to do music, who have had that experience, and
we've both gone through this process.
That's right. They have, and you can see the spark, right? Like nothing lights me up like that experience in an ensemble or what have you, or being on stage singing that aria, and it's like a universal calling card of musicians, and it's still true. I'm older than you, and we're certainly older than the applicants, but the experience of wanting to pursue music, I think, is actually still a pretty universal, unifying feeling, right? And that's why we're here, and we want to make that connection with our applicants and support their pursuit of music the best way we know how. Right.
And so we're here for the applicants.
That's right.
Awesome.
We did it. That's it.
Admission boys out. I'm gonna put that in.
Oh my gosh. At the very end. At the very end.
Just how simple and easy it was, and like straight to the chase.
Yeah.
Like with the website and the people and like the communication was back and forth. So I felt like, hey, I'm being heard. Like,
Okay.
I can do this. Like that was my experience.
Yeah. I don't know. All the professors in the jazz faculty like department were really nice at the time. I remember like Art reaching out and like having like an interview with him where we talked about I don't know what my 5 to 10 years planned future was, and that was like the first time I talked about that, and it was before coming here, and but it kind of gave me a good idea of what I was going into. I'd taken a bunch of like auditions in my high school program. I'd also taken some for like summer camps and whatnot for jazz programs.
I was applying to different grad schools and different young artist programs as an opera singer. You go through these auditions and pre-screenings mostly, so I got to record a lot at home.
Okay.
But this was my first audition, like also for my master's degree, where I got to come in, meet the faculty, work with some of the faculty also. And I think that's like a plus and an advantage that Lamont gives new incoming students, like that open gateway of, hey, come and work with us, and if it works out, come and audition. If not, see ya.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that was my experience.
Practice. That was a big one for me. Like that's one of the biggest things I've learned here before auditioning is just like how to practice like consistently and how to practice like efficiently too.
Same.
Yeah. But it's I had to go through that.
I wish I would have known about Denver's elevation in like Colorado. It's like
Yeah, fair.
thin air and altitude. Like where I come from, it's like sea level. It's humid.
Yeah.
So as a singer, when I came here, it was like, oh my God, it's dry.
Yeah.
But a good thing in my experience was that the faculty understood that, especially for singers, like they put a little wiggle room because, I was singing the phrases and I was doing my normal arias and I was like breathing in between the phrases. I was like, I forgot how to breathe. So yeah, just like a little mental note of, if you can't do your phrases completely, it's okay. If you could do some breathing exercises beforehand, that would be like awesome too. I wish I would have known that. Yes, I stalked the tour video.
Oh, same.
That's on YouTube.
Actually, yeah, I did the same thing.
And I was like, replay, that's my school. I want to go there. Look at that hall. Look at that beautiful spaces. And I was just so excited to study in this school. The attention to detail is just impeccable, in my opinion.
Definitely. I agree. And I knew that even more when I came here. I saw that video like so many times as well.
Yeah.
Oh man, dude, virtual practice rooms that we have.
Oh.
I came as a sax player. I play piano now, but I came as a sax player.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I was like in those rooms all the time, reverb turned up to 10.
Yeah.
Just like doing overtone stuff. So,
Same.
Yeah.
When I got to sing that first that audition that I did, it was like, and it was in room 100, which is like the vocal rehearsal space. And it's a rehearsal space. It's not even one of the big halls. I was like, oh my God, my voice just, went with the room. And it was just amazing that we get to perform in these world top tier, top tier rehearsal spaces and rooms and recital halls.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel pretty lucky.
Yeah, same.
All right, ready? First one, jazz or classical?
Jazz.
Classical.
Early decision or regular decision?
Regular decision.
Fall or spring?
Fall.
Cats or dogs?
Cat.
Mozart or Coltrane?
It's a hard one right there. Mozart, but Coltrane is just, it hits different. I'm gonna go with Coltrane. I'm gonna give you that one.
Sheet music or iPad?
Sheet music.
I only use sheet music, but iPad, maybe.
Sheet music.
I might
I love
switch.
the feel.
I like the feel too. And then sort of
Highlighter
actually write, yeah.
Humid or dry?
Humid.
Hot or cold?
Hot.
Hot.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Harry Potter or Game of Thrones?
I don't
Harry
care.
Potter.
Harry Potter, I guess.
Come on.
I haven't even seen Game of Thrones.
Then what's your Hogwarts house then?
Gryffindor.
That was a long, like... I think I was a Hufflepuff last time. Yeah.